Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of The Engine Room. My name is Malcolm Kerr. I lead marketing here at Formic, and I'm one of the hosts. And maybe I'll pass it to Misa so you can introduce yourself.
Hello, thank you for joining the second session of the Engine Room. My name is Misa Ilkhechi. I'm one of the co-founders here at Formic. I run our product team. Thanks for joining us.
Amazing. And today we are lucky enough to be joined by Zach Kimball from a really cool company called Hardfin. So maybe to kick things off, Zach, could you just introduce yourself, maybe give us a little bit about your background, and tell us a bit about Hardfin?
Sure thing. Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me. It's been great getting to know the Formic team. I'm lightning story. Originally from the East Coast, moved to the West Coast. Actually, spent a lot of the pandemic living in Middle America, moving to different cities from Montana to South Dakota to the Carolinas, and actually currently Colorado in Denver. But my background is in data and payments, actually. So I'm a software guy now, and have had the good fortune, I guess, to have positions across economics and law and business consulting over the years that before I went into startups. But Hardfin, really a financial operations platform for hardware OEMs trying to offer hardware as a service programs. And so that looks like understanding your customers, understanding your subscriptions, billing, invoicing, accounting to really execute a hardware as a service model. And that came from my background on operating data and payments for sort of other large industries. And I saw this opportunity in the equipment world where OEMs are sort of struggling to figure out how to execute hardware as a service, because up until now, the world has really been in two parts, right? You've been had the hardware world, equipment manufacturers, and we build stuff and we sell it, and you're the software world. We offer subscriptions, right? And there's no way to bridge that gap. There's not been a way to bridge that gap until Hardfin, and that's what we're about, is helping OEMs solve that problem. And we've been so excited to get to know some of the great partners in the industry like Formic that are really tackling this same journey towards robots as a service and how we digitize the American economy.
Amazing. Thanks for that intro. And the kind of primary reason why I was really excited to have you on the show is because I think upstream from both of our companies is the same problem. We are constantly walking around talking to manufacturers and feeling, hey, there should probably be more automation here, whether it's robotics or kind of other pieces of automation. Why is this technology not permeated more? And some of those key insights led to Formic being created, and I think it's that same insight that you're kind of reacting to and building a company around with Hardfin. So, you've probably talked to a ton of manufacturers as well. We've seen in the data and in our own lived reality, there are about 345 million people that currently work in manufacturing, and yet only about 2 million robots worldwide. So we talk all the time about this kind of age of robotics, but sometimes the lived reality of American manufacturing doesn't match that shiny vision. So I'm curious, why, in your opinion, aren't more American manufacturers automated?
Yeah, sure. It's a great question, and I know Misa. I'm sure you have 100 thoughts on this as well. We should hear too. For me, I think the biggest barrier is it's setup cost. I guess I don't mean cost literally. Like it's friction, right? It's setup friction, and adopting a new solution is intimidating, right? And even just because it changes the old way of working, right? Human beings, we're slow to adapt to change, even if change helps. Um, so on the one hand, you have sort of systems like some of the more complex sort of integration work that Formic can tackle and solve that is um, standalone in a way. It can like really plug in as a piece of a manufacturing process and become part of the production line. I think that can be scary to give up control in a way to a robot for a manufacturer. And so there's a mindset set shift there. Um, I think on the other end of the spectrum, there are companies that are trying to build like plug and play, drop in bots, and it's an autonomous mobile robot that's going to drive around the warehouse and do X or Y or unload things from the dock. Um, and it's in some ways easier to conceptualize that point solution but it's also sort of more in the mix, more like driving around your warehouse. Wow, well, watch out. The humans have to watch out. Um, so I think that's sort of the bookends in some way. Um, but overall, in either case, historically, there's been huge capital costs involved in taking these bets, and they really feel like a bet, right? You're going to spend whatever it is, $1,000,000 on a system, even 100,000 or 10 million, depending on the scale of the manufacturing operation. Like, you got a big change management process. Like, how are you going to decide to bite that off? And I think that's a big reason that manufacturing has underinvested in robotics historically, but especially over the last 10 years, even 5 years, as more and more of these systems add AI and become smarter and better and faster and cheaper. And so that's why I think that models like what Formic is doing with robots as a service that make this more accessible, really, both from a cost, obviously, but also from a friction standpoint. I think that is really what helps transform this next 10 years and become the wave of millions and millions of robots entering the U.S. workforce.
Amazing. I'm curious, Misa, is there anything you would add to kind of fill in that
Yeah.
picture?
No, no, I think these are all great points. Among friction, I would add risk. I feel like manufacturers are very good at risk mitigation when it comes to old technologies that have been using for a while. It has a clear and true ROI. They're not afraid of spending money there. A very good example of that is in the machine tool space. Nobody's hand milling or hand lathing turning products anymore, right? In the 80s and 90s, when lathe and mills became more cost effective, a lot more people started using them in the manufacturing space. I feel like the risk mitigation in the robotics and new technology space hasn't been done properly, and it's one of the only areas that I think a lot of manufacturers think twice before investing in it, just because sometimes the ROIs can't be clear. It's new technology. There's a lot of different options. It's very difficult for them to choose the right option. And post choosing the right option, to maintain and service these complex pieces of machinery they haven't seen that many of on their floor could also be very challenging. Another area I think is one of the reasons why manufacturers don't automate is the future forecastability of their business. Being agile in manufacturing is really important, and oftentimes when you build rigid automation, your process doesn't lend itself too much to be agile as much. So that's the rise of contract manufacturing has been because of agile capability and being able to kind of produce one thing one day and then retool and repurpose. There's a lot of good pieces of machinery that does that, but it hasn't been mainstream because most of it is still quite not as flexible as it should be for them to be able to utilize and replace labor with it.
Cool. So, one reason why I was excited to have you on the show is you mentioned in your LinkedIn bio a track record of connecting new technology to legacy industries. And I actually really hate that term, legacy industries. I feel like it sounds like something of the past when really it's much more so something of the present and the future. But I wanted to just dig in on that a little bit. Like, what are some challenges that you've encountered when you're bringing new technology into, let's say, more traditional industries that have had relatively less kind of venture capital investment and, disruption? Can you just kind of tell us some stories or share some insight about that?
Totally, and I agree with you. I think legacy is like it can be a really positive thing. Sort of these like long-standing, fantastic businesses that have transformed the United States over hundreds of years. So I don't use that word in a denigrating way. I think it's a positive thing. That said, sort of the software side of things is fast moving out in Silicon Valley, and are there opportunities to help bring that to the manufacturing world? Absolutely, and I'm excited to be part of that. So sort of putting that software layer and trying to help things grow. I was chuckling when you were asking that question, Malcolm, because I think like, oh man, what's not a challenge, right? In doing this, is like everything is. But I think first what comes to mind for me, and remember I'm on the software side of this, is like how many systems there are. And so obviously you've got the CRM system and the ERP system, and maybe there's a WMS involved, and there's probably some IoT data, and you need a billing system and your accounting system, and everybody always ends up with spreadsheets. spreadsheets and spreadsheets and spreadsheets, right? And like that's where things really start to go off the rails, I think, because then the spreadsheet that the production team is using starts to differ from the spreadsheet that the finance team is using, starts to differ from the spreadsheet that the ops team is using, and pretty soon it spirals into an actual problem. And that's what my team is, data and payments people, right? Because that's really how we view the problem we're solving is using computers and automation to understand and reflect and report the sort of deep complexities of an equipment driven business. And at the end of the day, it's a systems problem, what we're working on. So every situation is unique. You have to have flexibility there to be able to support all the different types of systems and that all the different types of customers are using. But I guess to be honest with you, though, companies can survive like limping along in spreadsheet chaos for quite a long time. It's inefficient and it's expensive, but you can operate that way. So companies don't go under; they sort of become less and less competitive over time. And for us, for Hardfin and our team, like the rubber kind of meets the road when a customer wants to close their books correctly and systematically and have confidence in assessing their business, or they want to go out to a bank to get financing, or they want to start an audit and have an external party come in and look at what the truth of the business is. That's when folks are in trouble. So we often see that companies will try to spend resources to alleviate these problems in-house, and it becomes sort of a crutch over time. Obviously not a good use of resources because you're focused on what your business is expert at, and building back office systems is usually not what people are focused on. But that's why I think there's this huge opportunity for software, whether it's sort of hardware as a service, financial enablement, whether it's the next wave of ERP and WMS systems, whether it's the software layer that Formic puts on top of your deployments. Like that stuff is transformative because digitizing these operations is really what's essential in order to have systematic, scalable, and profitable operations.
Yeah, I agree with that a lot because a lot of manufacturers, especially in the small, medium-sized sector, when we work with them trying to identify the right opportunities to automate, the challenge is oftentimes the production and the information available within the production facility is not available to people who are making decisions, so it becomes very difficult for them to say, yes, this makes a ton of sense, let's move. They're kind of living this very much quarter by quarter like cycles where if the billing matches the production, great. If the invoicing, there's all that happens. Decisions don't happen on daily basis. It happen on a quarterly and annual basis, which makes them very difficult to kind of plan out. Hey, what kind of equipment am I going to need? What kind of production capacity I need to have? And it makes it harder for the sales team to sell it too. I've talked to a lot of salespeople in these contract manufacturers. Them not having visibility on what's happening in their production line, it makes them less confident to go out there and promote and bring more products and more revenue into the company. So it's a really good point.
Yeah, it's like that functional interplay. Is what I think you're hitting on. And it's exactly what we see every day. It's like, well, if sales isn't talking to production, isn't talking to finance, how does this business operate? Like everything is becoming more and more integrated, and you need to have that visibility. I was just talking last week with a leader at a robotics company who's trying to quote what they're going to offer to market, and that quote doesn't actually get connected back to the finance team. So how is the finance team going to bill for what was quoted? It's like that becomes actually a real tangled issue when there's a piece of hardware and there's a piece of software and there's a warranty program up, but we're not going to bill for the warranty until the asset's been deployed. Like, oh my God, like just a couple quick questions and all of a sudden you're in a world of complexity. And that sort of functional integration is really for me where it all comes together.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I think bringing those foundational elements, ultimately what it enables is visibility and speed. The ability to actually move quickly on your feet, I think, is something that traditional legacy, whatever word you want to use, I think that's something I've seen is lacking a little bit. It's just that quick, agility, I suppose.
Yeah.
So,
and And I think just to add another layer of complexity to top of it, I've been involved in a lot of supply chain conferences recently, and these are where retailers, brands, so think of the grocery stores, the actual manufacturers, the crafts, the General Mills, the big names, and also the contract manufacturers. There's all these silos of information. The retail needs something, can't provide that information to the brand, and vice versa. Everybody kind of lives in these silos and spreadsheets, right? Which kind of makes it, again, very, very difficult to plan. But I feel like we have kind of lived in this world of unlimited flexibility and agile manufacturing, and bring it back that, hey, the moment that I say I want something, my manufacturer should be able to tool up and make it, right? And we're already seeing that fail in one of the most automated industries, which is automotive, and their tiered suppliers, where this unlimited flexibility is causing this whiplash effect, where a lot of manufacturers no longer are able to kind of retool and repurpose, on the fly. So we're already seeing that in one of the most automated industries, which is automotive. Now, the concept of consumer and agility kind of has bleeded over to other consumer products. But again, the manufacturing capacity in some of the less automated industries is really seeing the long, whiplash effects of that model.
So, from where you're sitting, what gives you optimism about the state of American manufacturing? And I don't know who wants to take this one first.
Misa, why don't you take this one first? I feel like I've been jumping on all these questions.
No, that's just, I think I gotta think about this a little bit. But I think one of the main things that comes to mind is people are at the point that they understand they need innovation. Although innovation technology was something that they felt like they can get by without, it's coming to a point that it's becoming a necessity, and it's becoming more, the pain is becoming a lot more visible, which yields more action compared to maybe 10 years ago. It's driving a need to kind of explore maybe some technologies that people weren't willing to explore 10 years ago. But also from a robot OEM and hardware system integrator standpoint, they are trying to kind of match the market with more flexible, more cost-effective pre-engineered machines, because that wasn't the norm. The norm was, let's build custom machinery for customers. Let's just really fit their needs. Whereas, I'm seeing more of customers are willing to, adopt their environment to fit some pre-engineered, pre-designed machinery. So I feel like people are finally getting from the point of, technology maybe 10, 15, 20 years from now, to a point that if we want to have a business 10, 20 years from now, and it's a robust business that continues to make money, we need to kind of evolve and invest in some newer technology. So that's what I think is the most, that's how I look at it, optimistically toward the manufacturing, future of the manufacturing.
I was thinking about your question about challenges, Malcolm, and like, what gives me optimism? It's like, what doesn't, right? I mean, it's like, there are so many challenges out to solve. And it's like every one of them is sort of unique but solvable, that makes things work better, things work more efficiently, things work more effectively, brings innovation to our domestic manufacturing industry. It's like, that is so exciting because basically so many challenges equals so many opportunities, right? And I'm fortunate I get to spend a lot of my time dreaming about the future and trying to make it a reality here. And like Misa is describing this innovation in technology and innovation in supply chain. It's like there's also these business model innovations that are coming out of as a service, obviously being a prominent one, that sort of tee up the entire industry to evolve better and faster. And I think sort of at the very highest level, when I think about this, is like software 15 years ago was sold outright, and software manufacturers didn't have a connection to their customers. Over the last 10, 15 years, Adobe, Microsoft, a whole slew of companies, and now basically every software company in the world runs SaaS. And they have a direct relationship, software as a service, subscription relationship with their customers. And hardware is in the early innings of this transition. Right? Hardware as a service allows an OEM or robotics manufacturer, robotic systems integrator to connect to their customer, better understand the problem, better solve the problem, better drive the innovation. And yeah, there's like a financial component to it, but it's way more than that. It's delivering service, it's delivering on your warranty commitments, it's having that relationship, and that business model innovation can then feed and accelerate the technological innovation. And that, more than anything, is like what gets me excited about the next 10 years in manufacturing.
Amazing. I love what you said too about early innings, because I think we feel the same way. It's very easy to go onto YouTube and make yourself feel like, a robot is coming, and they're going to do absolutely everything under the sun that humans might need, and you've got like these amazing videos from Boston Dynamics of robots doing backflips, but the kind of lived reality of manufacturing is so far from that. Like, there is still so much space for so many companies to create so much amazing stuff. One thing that gets me really excited is oftentimes we talk about manufacturing facilities that have been around for a really long time and getting automation into those facilities. That's really, really cool. We love that. For a lot of the manufacturers that we talk to, Formic is the very first robot ever deployed in that company's like 60 plus year history, and that's amazing. What gets me really excited is the manufacturing facilities that don't even exist yet. Like the people right now that are maybe working in tech or some other industry, they're maybe in their 20s or 30s, and they want to kind of pivot into manufacturing. Kind of what technologies, what would they adopt, and what would they build? Because this is not an industry that belongs in the past, right? It's one that belongs in the present and the future. I think COVID really woke people up to the importance of reshoring and tightening those supply chains. So I get really excited about that. Like, what have we not even thought of that we're going to be making here in the next 20, 30 years? And what technology can all the different parts of the American economy get together to empower that? So that's a cool vision.
Absolutely.
That's a really cool vision. Like, this is not kind of an industry on life support that we need to jump in and save. This is kind of the backbone of America and the future of what's going to make our country strong. And it's going to take a lot of different types of companies working together, and new ideas and old ideas and experience mixed with kind of new modes of thinking and operating that will make it all possible.
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like the concept of manufacturing was some sideline for the longest time, because we always thought we could reshore somewhere, outsource it somewhere cheaper, better, faster. But definitely the pandemic put a dent in that. So it will be interesting to see what companies are being built around on the idea of reshoring and making more manufacturing plants and facilities in the U.S.